Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We have a follow on episode after our Quitters Day conversation that we started at the beginning of the year. Just want to focus on some new tools, techniques, recommendations that we'd have to further your resolutions, your goals, your plans, your objectives. Kind of the hey, we're in the thick of it. What do I do now when the times get tough, when adversity starts to hit? And how can I just stay strong in accomplishing those goals and objectives? So we're going to cover focus, persistence, and perseverance today with Dr. Hall. Dr. Hall is a business psychologist, executive coach, a multi-time author. And as I always say, my favorite attribute is the neuro nerd side of him and how it is that we execute on the things that we talk about. How does our biology work so that we can see when and how the rubber meets the road? With that, I'll bring Dr. Hall in. How are you doing today, Dr. Hall?
Doing quite well.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks for joining us again today. This will be a great follow-on, I think, to our prior discussions.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let me do a couple of housekeeping items here. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is Jared Lee. I'm the associate broker and team lead here at My Home Connection, also known as MHC Realty. Our sponsor is the Perfect Real Estate Business. We've been developing this over the last couple of decades, in large part now with Dr. Hall, introducing business coaching, life coaching, mentoring, things that you just really should look to implement into your business. And then obviously a lot of the traditional things that you would want to have with lead generation, revenue sharing, things like that. If you have any other questions, feel free to give us or to reach out to us, and we'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. But at this point, Dr. Hall is kind of the topics of the conversation is, we're implementing the things that we've been talking about in the last two episodes, and now things are really getting tough, right? That we've passed the second Friday, which is what, 80% of failure rate? Is that?
Yeah, yeah. For your New Year's resolutions, 80% fail by the second Friday in January.
So hopefully we're past that. We've talked about ways to get past the 2 weeks, and now we're getting into the thick of it. I think the biggie is, just staying focused on what we've planned, right? So in real estate, actually, you know what? Let me throw up a quick screen here if I can. And that is, we develop a plan to that's personalized to how it is that you would do business, how you would generate business in your real estate. And, we've worked with you to identify what it is that you want to do. Do you want to do, cold calling and call expired and for sale by owners? Do you want to be on the phone all day, or do you want to implement lead generation through maybe Google PPC or YouTube ads, things like that? So we've kind of honed in on what is a good fit for you and your business. But now we're talking about actually staying focused in what you do and the reasons that you wouldn't. What's been your experience in successful people maintaining focus?
I think the most important thing is something I've talked about in the past, which is just choose one thing to change at a time. That people who are successful in making a change have a singular focus. They're not looking at more than one thing to change. I read a wonderful book, and I believe the book was Essentialism, which is one of my favorite books. I may be wrong about this, but the point was that the word priority did not have a plural form until more recently. So you couldn't say priorities because there was no such thing as priorities.
Oh, that's an interesting perspective.
A priority. It was a singular thing. It's kind of like saying we're the uniques. Multiple of us are unique in the same way. So you can only have one priority,
Right.
and successful people choose that one priority at a time. And then once that one priority is met, then they can add on to that.
Mm-hmm. So in my mind, you can focus on things that you've planned, right? You said, okay, this is the business I'm going to pursue, and somebody's done it before, and now I'm just replicating that, and I'm trying to learn how to be really good at what's already been proven to work. And then you have some people that just focus on, kind of out there things, never been done. You got the Elon Musks, you've got, people that are just pioneers.
Uh-huh.
I guess I'm wondering, like, the importance of determining who you are in. I guess I'm already jumping ahead to the persistence and perseverance side of things. Like, it's going to require a lot more of both of those because it's never been proven, right? You're going to have to.
Well, I would say both ways of approaching problem solving require persistence. You've got the visionary, the person who thinks up stuff out of nothing, and that's the one everybody wants to have. Everybody wants to be a visionary, but if we were all visionaries, nothing would get done.
Somebody's got to execute on the vision.
There's got to be somebody who gets things done. I remember I was working with a couple, and this was decades ago, and he said, "I'm the thinker-upper, and she's the follow-upper," and it was a great distinction between the CEO and the COO, the person who thinks things up, and then the person who makes it happen. You need someone who executes the decisions that the visionary makes. Mm-hmm. And figure out what you're better at, what you like more. Like engineers, for example, they're not great at coming up with items out of thin air.
They're used
but
to
as soon as you give them an idea, man, they can systematize it and perfect it, and they can work it out so that all the little details get squared away. Well, the visionary is like, I don't know, you figure that out. I can't do it. So figure out which you are, and don't spend all of your time trying to be better at the part you're not better. Find other people to collaborate with who are better at those things. But it all requires persistence. I think on the focus piece, let's talk about distractions. And this is a topic I've spent many hours training on, is that we now live in a time where the media is so ubiquitous that we could live in a constant state of distraction. Mm-hmm. Prior to computers, we had people getting about 2,000 ads directed at them a day. Now that there is the internet, with computers and the internet, mm-hmm. it's higher. And then with the advance of cell phones, mobile phones, that are essentially computers in our pockets, and then the expansion of social media, the number of ads that we're faced with every day has skyrocketed. So we're constantly in a state of distraction, and our best work gets done when we eliminate those distractions. And that means turning off the notifications on your phone. I've got my phone pretty well shut down so that I don't notice when things come in. Like every time the phone asks me, do you want to allow notifications? No. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't want the notification, because every time that dinger goes off or every time it buzzes, that takes me out of my concentration. And if we look at distractions, if you're concentrating, it takes about 20 minutes to go from a shallow level of concentration to a deep level of concentration. And that ramp down to that deep level of concentration takes time. Mm-hmm. Well, you get to that deep level of concentration, you're focusing, and you're kind of in the groove, you're in the zone, you're in flow. Mm-hmm. As soon as that dinger dings, as soon as somebody knocks on your door, whatever it is, you're out. It's gone.
Right.
And so anytime something comes in and says, oh, this will only take a minute. No, it's 21 minutes. 1 minute to solve the problem, 20 minutes to get back to your level of concentration. So what I find is that people are doing really substandard work now because they're not in deep level concentration on their work, because they're constantly being distracted.
Yeah.
And now we have trained our brains to be hyper vigilant to extraneous stimuli, distractions, paying attention to it. So we're really great at noticing those things, but we're not great at concentrating. And so what has to happen is a deeper level of concentration, more quiet. There's an author, Cal Newport, who has written, I think, 3 or 4 books on these topics. And it really is, they are worth a read. One is called Deep Work. I'm looking at my book, Deep Work, and then he's got another just about distraction. And I think he's really done very important work on this. So if you want to be able to focus, you've got to eliminate all those extraneous distractions. And sometimes it means putting yourself into another place.
Yep.
I had a client owned a company. He would go to the library once a week for half a day, and he would do his best thinking in the library because, you can't answer your phone in the library. And he would do his research for his work. He was a salesman, so he would research who he was going to call on to sell family's product. Yeah. And he became very successful as a result, and he's now president and owner of the company.
We have these deep, they actually call them deep work rooms at the, we're in like an executive office suite, and they have like telephone booths and all these different areas. But one of the things they put up are these small, deep work rooms just for that very reason. You go in, turn off all your notifications and close the door and turn off the light if you want, and, get into your laptop and just start working away. And I found it extremely helpful.
It's super helpful. The difficulty is that your laptop is presenting you with all the distractions you could ever want. I mean, I love the internet. I mean, it's like having every resource, not every, but almost every resource at your fingertips for research. You can find stuff out. The invention of the internet has destroyed bar bets. You can't bet somebody because you can find out right away.
Right.
But there you are in your deep work room. This machine is your immediate distraction. You can just cruise onto the internet and go searching everywhere and find yourself down some rabbit hole.
Yep.
Watching puppy and kitten videos.
Yeah. I think the invention or the introduction of focus mode, because I'm on Apple products. That's nice because it cripples a lot of that for you. You say, an hour till this evening or whatever. So that's helpful for notifications, but you're right. Like, you're just an extra browser tab away from yet some other rabbit hole to go digging into, and off you go. And even if it's something that's relevant that you think, okay, maybe I should take 5 or 10 minutes to do that, and you blink and it's a half an hour later, so.
Right. And it's fun. I mean, if we look at, there's a great book called Dopamine Nation, and the author, she argues that the internet provides us all these hits of dopamine, and there's new research, and again, it's not completely well established that dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. It's actually the desire chemical.
Oh, interesting.
And that dopamine levels go up until you obtain the thing that you desire. As soon as you do, dopamine levels go down. It's the want. It's the want chemical. It's the desire. Once you've attained it, then you get a good feeling. But dopamine comes from desire.
Yeah.
Again, that's early days on the research, but it's worth thinking about. And the way the internet is set up it's a great distraction, and it feels good to be searching.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get on to the next topic, just kind of a quick summary. So when we help our agents and in their entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship is, jack of all trades, master of none. So what we've done is taken out, almost all, or as many as we can be, the things that would distract an agent in their business, so that they can just go focus on, again, the business generation, category that we identified for them. So let's not have you do, 10, 20 different things to keep your business going. The team kind of does that. So focus on what your specific personalized efforts are, and then just the day-to-day, interactions, notifications, annoyances, set those aside, and then time block. I've got to do this during these times because this is the most productive time to do that activity. So that's the recommendations we have around focusing. And then,
time blocking and a plan that works. If you find that your time block is not productive, then move your time block to another day. I'll give you an example. I was using Friday afternoon as a time of reflection, and I wasn't getting anything done. And a friend of mine said, well, why don't you just move that to Monday? And I go, oh, yeah, moved it to Monday, and it's been a lot more effective.
Yeah, it's your calendar, right?
Yeah, it's my calendar. So figure out what works, and if it doesn't work, it's a bad plan. So play with it. So block your time so you have uninterrupted time to do your most important work, and then figure out when you have your most energy. For me, it's early in the day. So if I answer early in the day, that's not an effective use of my time. The most effective use of my time early in the day would be to do productive work.
Yeah. I think knowing to put it on your calendar and when to put it on your calendar based upon the energy that you have, the activities, before and after, and what's most, productive for you. A lot of wisdom in that. But let's talk a little bit about persistence. Kind of that, doing what you need to do that you've already planned to do with difficulty coming at you. Right? Because it's not if difficulty is going to come your way, it's when it comes and how difficult it is, and then how you're going to respond to that.
Yep. I think the issue of persistence is particularly difficult in our current society because the digital world has made instant gratification very easy and very inexpensive. And so we have to practice persistence. We have to practice getting through the suck before we'll be really good at things. And unless we practice those things, we'll never get good at persistence. This is a story I've told many times, but my father grew up on the farm in the Depression, and they had a tractor and a pickup truck. And if there was a problem with the pickup truck, it took 3 hours to walk to town where the auto parts store was to pick up the part, and then 3 hours to walk back. So how do you solve this problem? Well, any problem that takes less than 6 hours to fix with the stuff we have at hand is better than walking into town.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of brute force solutions that they would figure out through persistence, through trial and error, because it was going to be, if they could get it done in 5 hours, it was still a savings of walking to town to buy the part, or in that era to order the part and wait another week.
Yeah.
So what happened is my father and his brothers developed they developed the muscle of persistence because they didn't have any other easy choice.
That was their go-to in their mindset.
Yeah, it's like, okay, let's figure this out. With what we have on hand, if we can do it in less than 6 hours, we're good. So because things are so convenient, especially in suburban and urban environments, it's easy to get access to anything. We can go on Amazon and it'll be delivered in most places by the next day. And sometimes even the same day. I don't live in one of those areas, but same day delivery on something you order, it's delivered to your house. You don't even have to get out. I don't have to persist on anything. I just wait for the UPS driver to persist.
Yeah. So is it, think of it like a muscle, like I have a persistence muscle. This is my go-to for figuring out problems, is I just need to figure it out. And
it's like any mental skill. Every mental skill is changing the biology of your brain so that those neurons connect more, which is much like working a muscle, is that you've got to practice and rehearse that mental habit which is persistence, like this sucks. Oh yeah, I know this feeling. And then the next statement is, yeah, I've done this before. I can do this. And so I'll just embrace the suck and move forward. That's that practice and rehearsal. You can get a ton of stuff done if you learn that. I think one of my favorite stories on this is the story of the Shackleton expedition to Antarctica. The boat was called the Endurance, and it was his family's motto. And it turns out endurance is what kept him and his crew alive when the Endurance was captive in the ice, and eventually the ice floes crushed it. And these guys, I mean, how they stayed alive through the winter in Antarctica on a boat, and then when spring came and it started to crush it, they went across ice floes and then rode like 100 miles across open sea to get rescue, and climbed a mountain and scaled down a cliff it's an incredible story. Well, if he was like most people, he would have gone, I'm going to give up.
He just didn't have that persistence mindset.
No.
If he wouldn't have had it, right, that wouldn't have been
Yeah.
entered his mind that they could live.
Oh, I'm trying to remember his name. He was a Navy airman who was shot down in World War II, and he and a couple other guys were in a raft, and the raft was full of holes, and they had to have somebody 24 hours a day constantly pumping the raft up because it was leaking air the whole time. And so,
Wow.
I mean, for weeks they stayed alive in this raft with sharks around them because they just kept pumping it up. Well, most of us would go like, "Rude, we can't do this." Well, if it's between you and shark death,
You figure it out.
you figure it out.
Yeah.
So, I can't remember the name of the book, but they made it into a movie as well. But the book is better.
Wow. It'll come to you.
It'll come to me. Yeah.
Well, and I think the appreciation for the things that come about with persistence, ingenuity, stick-to-itiveness, resilience. You learn some skills, right? I'm sure every time they had to fix a truck by virtue of something that would have taken longer than 6 hours, they figured out a cool new way to fix something else later because they had done that. And thought, oh, this is something to keep in mind for next time.
Yeah, and for my father and his brothers, it gave them all a lifetime of practical skills that they used for the rest of their life on figuring things out and having success in life by overcoming adversity. That was their life in the Depression.
Yeah. If you want to look at a resilient generation,
Yeah.
it's the ones that went through the Depression. Like, they were pretty tough individuals.
Well, and they got tough because it was hard and they had to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a great book that I've mentioned many times by Marie Forleo, and the book is called "Everything is Figure-Outable." And the title's fantastic because everything is figure-outable. And then she talks about all of her experiences of being persistent and staying with it and seeing it through to the end and having success because of it.
I've heard people talk about that actually for some people, the world is going to become much easier because these are the people that do power through adversity, that do, rise above in occasions because there's so few people that are doing it these days. You're going to stand out much easier. I don't know quite what to think of that, but it's an interesting concept.
I absolutely believe that if you have figured out how to be persistent and muscle through difficult problems, much of the rest of the world is being carried along by technology, and they don't know how to do things. And so when something goes sideways, they're lost. They'll just sit down and cry, and you'll get up and figure it out. And it, in some cases, could be the difference between life and death. That if you have a quitter's mentality or why won't somebody take care of me mentality, you'll be, when disaster strikes, you're lost.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Even if you don't have the quitter's mentality, like my first reaction is to quit, but yet I haven't ever practiced not quitting, figuring it out, even in spite of things that come up. It kind of becomes a quitter's mentality.
Well,
Or
yeah, it is. It is. Unless again, it's like every muscle, every mental habit. Unless you've practiced it's not there. And because of digital technology, the clever answer is the right answer. You can come up with a clever response or find some way to juke the system so that you get what you want. But until you have figured out how to muscle through things, that's a muscle you pardon the pun, that you've never exercised, a mental muscle you've never exercised, and so you can't solve those kinds of problems.
Yeah, interesting. So I think there's often a conflating or a confusion between persistence and perseverance, and I don't know that I understand all the nuanced differences, but kind of the idea that even if I'm doing something, we've talked about the adversity side, which makes sense. We've got to overcome that, but I'm also not seeing success. So, right, everybody, like you said, instant gratification. Why didn't it work 5 minutes ago mentality? Um, how do you best fight that need to see incremental success all the time to keep driving you forward?
Well, I think it's how you define failure. If you define failure as, okay, did you learn anything from the failure, then that can keep you in the game for longer. If you view every failure, every setback as nothing but a blanket setback and a failure, yeah, you're going to get, but you'll persevere if you think, oh, okay, that didn't work. What did I learn from it? I mean, it's probably apocryphal, but I think Edison said, it was 10,000, somewhere around 10,000 tries before he found the right filament for the light bulb. And he said, what did it feel like to make that many mistakes? And he said, I wasn't making mistakes. I was finding out what didn't work. Every one of those was a step toward the solution.
Wow.
And that sort of attitude helps you to persevere if you view everything as a learning opportunity. If you view it as a condemnation of your abject failure and your stupidity, well, then, yeah, of course you're going to give up.
Yeah. Are we back to talking a little bit? Because we brought this up briefly. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, but I think it's very profound, kind of the gap in the gain mentality. Mm-hmm. Edison said, hey, I'm gaining. I'm eliminating options that didn't work so that I can find the option that did. I mean, that's a whole different perspective shift than, I just wasted, all that time trying that filament.
Yeah. Let's remind the people who are listening the gap in the gain. This comes from the work of Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. And what he says is if you're looking forward ahead to what you want to achieve, there's always a gap between where you are and where you want to be. And if you're going toward the horizon line, guess what? The earth is round, so you're always going to be moving. There's always going to be a gap. What he says is that successful people look at their gain. They look at what they've achieved from a set point, as opposed to where their gap is to where they want to go. Very often, what happens in our human mind, where we're all humans, and if you're not, I don't want to know. In the human mind, we tend to we tend to look at our gains, and then once we achieve it, then what do? We change the finish line. We set another goal, and so, I've never achieved my goals. Well, if you look back 20 years, you absolutely did achieve your goals. You just changed the finish line.
Yeah.
And so you have to look backwards. And one of the things that's helpful is to keep some records of what you're intending to do. So a little bit of journaling every day is not a bad idea. And it doesn't have to be, tremendous, just some records of, what were my wins today? What did I accomplish today? So that you can see even these tiny little wins all are additive towards a large gain later. And again, I'm borrowing or stealing somebody's quote. It's we tend to overestimate what we can get done in a year and underestimate what we can get done in 10 years.
Yeah.
And so keep at it and keep stacking up the victories. Eventually, you're going to have something really remarkable at the end of it.
Well, I like that changing the definition of that a little bit. It's not you're delaying in your achieving your success. It's changing the definitions of your success, and then looking at them differently. Okay, I achieved this little success, getting to a bigger success, rather than I'm still not seeing any success.
Right, right. So you have to measure the tiny little incremental steps, and you have to memorialize them as well. The way the human brain works is we don't pay attention to things that are mildly positive. So you have to write them down, you have to record them. What we remember are these incredible gains and incredible setbacks, or any setback. We'll remember those. The way our brain is set up, it's called the negativity bias. And so we'll remember the mistakes we made, the 1,000 tiny little mistakes, but we won't remember the 10,000 gains we've made. That's just not the way our brain is set up, because our brain is designed to keep us alive and to recall things that are likely to kill us. Well, small gains won't kill us. So our brain isn't designed to remember those. So we have to memorialize them. That's why you need to write them down every day.
Yeah, and this is the neuro nerd stuff that I really like, in knowing that I'm not strange because my normal human tendency is to think the way that I think. We're wired to think that way because it helps protect us. But in a lot of situations, it's not helpful. So acknowledge your inclination is this direction. The better way to think of it is this way, but you got to kind of force yourself to do it.
Yeah, be thankful that your brain is designed to keep you alive. And recognize that along with that are some limits that don't work in every situation. So you've got to figure out your way around those. And again, memorialize successes. Figure out how to write them down, how to reward yourself so that you can remember them.
Yeah, even at a minimum. I mean, I totally agree with you. Write them down so that you're putting some thought into it. You're acknowledging, where you've been, where you've come. Do a postmortem, figure out some things that didn't go so well, and course correct. Right? We were going to talk about during focus that we need to kind of course correct, and we can go back to that briefly because I think it's helpful. That sometimes make a plan that works, but if you're kind of going down a path that maybe not works for you, we're saying focus, but adjust your focus sometimes if need be.
Yeah, change. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But even just the concept of thinking back, it's helpful. Think back a year ago, 5 years ago. Okay, where was I? And give yourself some credit that, you have made some progress. If it's a 20-year, career, and you went through a year, don't beat yourself up because you're not where you want to be in 20 years.
Right, because you've got for most of us, presumably we still have lots of runway in front of us.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Well, I think this is all really great stuff. We're right about the half an hour mark, which is where we try to wind things down as best we can. But let's make sure the folks know how to get a hold of you and where your resources are at.
Yeah, you can check me out on my website at drrogerhall.com, drrogerhall.com. You can follow me on Instagram, on X, and that's at Doctor, spelled out DOCTOR, Roger Hall, Dr. Roger Hall. And if you go to my website, Dr. Roger Hall, you can find my books, which are Expedition, Staying Happy, Being Productive, and DIY Brain. And I've got in the pipeline DIY Leader Brain, which looks at how humans interact, the neurobiology of human interaction.
And you've got a quiz that you'd encourage.
Quiz you can take, which is the Freak Out quiz, which will then take you to the Freak Out course. It's a relatively inexpensive way to learn how to overcome your fears. Awesome.
Well, very good, Dr. Hall. I think it should be very helpful when people are getting into the throes of wondering, am I accomplishing the goals and objectives that I need to accomplish? And if not, what do I need to do? Redirect my focus, make sure that I'm building character through perseverance, just acknowledging my wins when my natural inclination is to look at a gap versus a gain. So I think this is all, just super helpful information, and we appreciate your time and sharing with us.
Grateful to be here with you again, Jared. Thanks for inviting me to do this interview.
Absolutely. All right, guys. We'll wish everybody a blessed one. Take care.